right. It's always tough to follow Petrosky, I'll tell you that. So, good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Porter. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs and Policy for Travere Therapeutics. We are exclusively focused on rare disease, and we're based in San Diego. It's really a pleasure to be here and see so many old friends and meet some new friends as well. I think, building on what Petrosky said, what we're doing today is so important because rare disease families are not well understood by policymakers here in Washington. Stories like the one you're going to hear about Amber are can need to be told over and over and over, because if policymakers knew what rare disease families go through, we'd have more incentives, not less. We'd have more access, not constant fights with insurance companies. We'd have more hope. We'd have more health. And I know as a rare disease patient myself what that's all about. And you know, when I think about when I had the chance to talk with Amber before today, it's really about education. It's about talking about unmet needs and what that really means for people who have unmet needs and the urgency involved in that. So I'll tell you one story of mine from my journey that kind of exemplifies to me what rare families go through. So, and please forgive me if some of you that I've worked with before have heard this story, but it involves 2 bagels and a pancreas. Okay? So, you know, I've been very blessed. 16 years ago, I got a cadaveric liver transplant. And my rare disease, I live under the threat that it can come back. But for me, there was something that could deal with my rare liver disease, this transplant, right? Well, in the early part of that, I went and I got a procedure done that I would have to do all the time during my diagnosis. And the first time I had it done to me, unbeknownst to me, it would always give me pancreatitis. So I got this procedure done. I went home. We lived in this little townhouse in Arlington. I was on the top floor, and my wife was on the first floor. And I took a bite of a bagel, bagel number 1. And the pancreas said, "I am not happy about this bagel." And if you're not on speaking terms with your pancreas, I suggest you get on it, because it's the little organ with the great big kick. Pancreatitis is like an elephant sitting on your chest holding an elephant. So I can't speak, I'm in pain, I'm like writhing on the floor, and I'm trying to bang, and my wife is in the kitchen unbeknownst to me with headphones on. So I'm banging the floor, I can't do anything, so I can't walk either, so I'm like, I slither over the steps and I bang down to the second floor, then I bang down to the next floor, and as my wife tells it, I just kind of spilled at the bottom of the floor, writhing in pain. So she, at the time, our son was in school. And so she knew, like a rare disease mom, she was going to have to find someone to take care of our son. So she called a friend of ours, and the way the friend of ours tells it, he shows up, the ambulance is right there, and she walks in, and my wife is eating, guess what? A bagel. So he walks in, I'm writhing in pain on the floor, can't speak, and she's eating a bagel. So this is what rare disease families go through. She knew that she was going to have to spend, again, time in the hospital. It might be 2 hours, it might be 8 hours. She knew, yet again, she was going to be the only person in that emergency room that knew about my rare liver disease. And she knew, yet again, she was going to have to put the kids down to bed, not knowing what the next day would bring, and to say, "Pray for Daddy, but it's going to be okay." That's what rare disease families go through. And if policymakers understood what that meant, Amber and literally hundreds of thousands, you said it right, Petrosky, hundreds of thousands of heroes are going through this as we speak today. Those are the stakes that are involved today. It's an honor to go to work on their behalf with all the colleagues in this room, and it's an honor to be able to introduce our guest Amber. Again, education, unmet need, urgency. And before I bring her up, we're going to have a video that tells you a little bit more about her. So please have your attention to the screens as we start the video.
The only thing I ever wanted in life was to be a mother. And like a lot of people, it was harder than we thought it would be. With a lot of prayer, 2 years of IVF, we finally received the news that we were having not one, but 2 precious little babies. And it was the happiest moment of my life.
Where are we going, Mark?
We're going to the hospital.
I went into labor early, and we were so nervous. And the moment I heard Maxwell's cry, changed me as a person. The day we received Maxwell's diagnosis, I went back to work. I told them all something really bad has happened and I have to leave right now. And I didn't even grab my earbuds. I just walked out. And I didn't know what I was gonna do or how I was going to do it, but I knew I was going to do it. I knew I was going to help Maxwell and every other child with this disease. Maxwell was diagnosed with a rare disease that was so rare it didn't even have a name. It's known as SLC6A1, which is the genetic location. At the time of the diagnosis, we were told he was one of 50 in the world and that nothing could ever be done. And just go home and give him the best life you can. Between the ages of 3 and 4, these kids develop a debilitating form of epilepsy, and then they regress because there aren't any drugs that can treat the epilepsy well. So his neurological system will essentially be on fire with no way to help him. I will fight and advocate for him to the death, and if something can be done, I'm going to do it. So I just looked right back at the doctors and I said, if this were your son today, what would you do? And they said, start calling scientists. Every scientist said, have you thought about gene replacement therapy? It looks like this disease can actually not only be treated, but cured. There was one scientist in Texas that we identified as our man. He's extremely busy, nearly impossible to get his attention. So I started sending him Uber snacks and snapshots of Maxwell. I found out he was speaking at the National Institute of Health at a conference. I took a red eye and I just showed up. And there he was sitting in the front row. And I walked right up to the front row and I just sat down next to him and was trying to play it cool. And he turned to me and he said, hi, Amber. And I said, hi, Steve. Can we go out to dinner tonight? And after a 4-hour dinner, we had a plan and we were gonna cure this disease together. The cure is actually created now. We're going to come close to 500,000 within the next couple of weeks. We've raised all of that money through $20 donations on GoFundMe. Gene therapy is being done in thousands of diseases like Maxwell's. So we know it's going to work. We need to raise the money and complete the science for his particular gene. The more money we raise, the faster we can go. We can do some steps in parallel that we're doing chronologically right now. The treatment itself is extremely simplistic. You receive a 2-hour spinal tap where the new gene is introduced into the body through a virus that doesn't make humans sick. The virus goes up through your spinal fluid to your brain, and it's a smart virus. So it attacks the bad copies of the DNA and stacks good working copies of the DNA on top. And viruses permanently alter your DNA. So it's a 2-hour treatment that's once and done for the rest of your life. Someday, this disease will be on a newborn screening panel, so children will be diagnosed while they are still in the hospital, and parents will receive the devastating news that their child has a rare neurological disease, but they'll be treated before they leave the hospital, and they will never become symptomatic. There will never be another Maxwell Fried. I'm coming before you today as a humble mother, asking for your help to help save Maxwell from his rare disease. I really don't have the words of gratitude for you, other than to say thank you so much for helping my baby.